Welcome everybody to our evening with Rabbi Barry. We've got a special program tonight with moments of reflection, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But right now we have a candidate that we'd like to introduce, and Guido Weiss, and he's on our ballots. So Guido, go right ahead.
Let me give him just a brief intro.
Okay.
Guido's done a lot of work working with Israel, a lot of work and trying to make the world better in many ways. And if he gets elected, he will be the first one to be able to speak fluent Hebrew in the halls of Congress. So we're all excited about his candidacy. And at L'Dor Va-Dor, we like to give everybody a chance to speak. So Guido, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rabbi and Sharon and everybody else for being here tonight. As Rabbi Barry said, I'm a Hebrew speaker. I went to graduate school in Israel. I'm from Wellington originally, and I'm also a Navy intelligence officer. But just kind of going into the discussion of John Lewis and some of the social justice protests that have been going on around the country. Well, one thought on John Lewis. I was a staffer when John Lewis was a member of Congress. And I had a lot of wonderful opportunities to be on the House floor while he was on the House floor speaking, to see him in the halls of Congress, because, you know, he actually won his primary earlier in the year. So he was fully intending on being a member of Congress for another 2 years, which I think would have made 18 terms. So he's been there. I think he was the dean of the Georgia delegation. And then I started reading about him and the Selma March and the Big Six who went to Washington, and working with the Jewish community. He worked with Rabbi Abraham Joshua in Selma. And the other interesting part about him, he was in 1987, he was an activist for freeing Soviet Jewry. So I thought that was a really telling aspect about John Lewis that I thought was really important to bring up when we're having a discussion with the Jewish community, that, you know, he didn't always agree with maybe the leaders of Israel, but he was very friendly in general to the Jewish community. A couple of thoughts. One of his most inspirational quotes, and I'll talk about my campaign and how I relate it to that. So I'm running the first campaign ever for this district, Florida District 21, in the primary with Lois Frankel. If you live between West Palm Beach and Delray, including West Boca, Wellington, and Palm Beach Island. So the first campaign ever to not take money from ag companies, Wall Street, weapons companies, you name it, that influence our politics so much. So I'm trying to be an honest broker when you're not tied to those companies. And one prime example is, you know, a lot of members of Congress don't speak out about phosphorus and nitrates destroying our coral reefs and things like that, because they're tied to these companies. So John Lewis said, get into trouble, good trouble, and get into necessary trouble. And how that's kind of resonated throughout this campaign for Congress, I had the most telling example of that the other day. A senior Florida politician, and I won't say who, it's a little sensitive, called me up and said, "You're really starting to ruffle some feathers." Good. And got a little bit upset with me about challenging an incumbent who I find to be absent from our communities. Now, I've been in every community, the Haitian community, the Latino community. They don't even know who she is, because, you know, she's not there. And I'm trying really hard to provide a really community-based representation that's not tied to companies, that can really act on behalf of the community for District 21. So that Florida politician, a senior politician, called me and said, "You're really starting to ruffle some feathers. I suggest you bow out." And then that was about the time that John Lewis passed. And that was about the time that I was reading the news, and they reminded me of get into trouble, get into good and necessary trouble. And that Florida politician did say, the incumbent, the establishment party will take it out on you. And what I've done is we formed a group of candidates from Palm Beach County all the way down to Miami. All of us are relatively young candidates, all challenging candidates that have been in for 20 to 35 years. Everybody except for Ted Deutsch. From Frederica Wilson, Deborah Wasserman Schultz, Lois Frankel, and Alcee Hastings. We're all young Democrats trying to have a different perspective on how we think our community should be represented. So I'm really, I owe a lot of my inspiration as of lately to that quote from John Lewis. I say it to myself almost every single day. When somebody's trying to pressure us out of doing something that we think is going to better the community because it might affect the status quo, I just keep on saying, get into trouble, get into good and necessary trouble. So I really appreciate that. One other thing I'll talk about, just because we're talking about the issues of racial disparity and injustice and significant socioeconomic gaps that still exist. I was able to be at one of the Black Lives Matter protests the other day in West Palm. It wasn't a protest, actually. It was a vigil with the Black community in downtown West Palm Beach. And it wasn't actually a Black Lives Matter thing. It was a big vigil from across various organizations. And I read a Hebrew prayer there. I read Psalm 121 and sang it to the crowd, and they really appreciated it. And I was trying to tell them, you know, and the rabbi probably knows a lot more than I do about this specific passage, but I think it's something that I've heard in a wedding, a funeral, and even during war in Israel. I heard them saying the specific passage 121. It's really something about strength. So it was a really nice connection to bring a Jewish Hebrew prayer to that event. And really, they were counting off the names, and it was so reminiscent to events I had been with in the Jewish community at the various Holocaust museums and various other institutions. When somebody's reading name by name people who have died at acts, you know, that weren't guilty of anything but had been murdered for some reason or killed for some reason within their community, and it really hit a nerve with me because I have been to those exact events for the Jewish community before, where people were reading name by name, or on the wall was a placard with 50 names or 100 names or 10,000 names, depending on where you were. So that's, I mean, this is just a couple thoughts of recent, you know, things I've been up to, and I would thank you again for letting me come here and share a couple words. I don't know John Lewis personally, but I was able to at least be, you know, in close contact or in close quarters with him when he was a member of Congress, and I've definitely been inspired by him. And if you have any questions about the campaign, I'm also happy to answer those.
Thank you very much. And it's perfect timing because we are going to start the moments of reflection now.
Well,
And I
Sharon,
wanted to share this with everyone. My corporation CEO and president organized a moment of reflection for our entire company this week. I felt that our congregation, L'Dor Va-Dor, being a congregation adamant to doing Tikkun Olam and taking social action wherever and whenever we are able, would be honored to do this as well. And Rabbi gave me permission to institute this. We're going to participate in a moment of reflection together. We'd like to spend this 8 minutes and 46 seconds reflecting how each of us can be a part of the solution of eliminating social injustice in our world today. May this 8 minutes and 46 seconds mean something special for each of us. For this is the amount of time that George Floyd gasped his last breaths of living, saying over and over, "I cannot breathe," to the police, and nothing was done to save his life. Together, may we make a difference, and together, may we be a part of the solution to end social injustice throughout the world. And may we now have moments of reflection for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Thank you all. I think that was very important. Rabbi?
I think you're muted, Rabbi.
You want to talk?
Hi. First of all, I want to thank Sharon for organizing this. It was her concept and her idea. And I want to thank two candidates. We have Guido Weiss and Tina Polsky, who are both here. I just wanted to comment on what Guido was saying, because getting into good trouble is what being Jewish is all about. That's really the essence of Judaism. And in the Torah, it says that if you don't speak out against iniquity, then you share in the guilt of the wrongdoer. We just had a moment of silence for over 8 minutes. Most people would think, I could never watch someone die for over 8 minutes and do nothing. I couldn't do that. And we have to ask the officers who were there watching one of their fellows and participating in the death of someone over 8 minutes, how could ordinary people do it? And the reason is because they didn't want to get into trouble. They were following orders from their superior. They were new on the job. They didn't want to get into trouble, so they just went along. And before you knew it, now they're being prosecuted. And now they are among the most hated people because they just had to go along. So it's very important that we elect people in office who are going to speak up for Jewish values. Yes, we have Jewish people in Congress, in the state legislature and county commission, but do we have Jewish people who speak up for Jewish values? Or are they just Jewish in name only and their Judaism is left at the door because they don't want to cause trouble or make waves by being pointed out, oh, this guy's Jewish, and they don't want to point it out? We need people like Guido who are not just Jewish, but actually have a Jewish neshama and want to use their Jewish values to make this world better and to purify and to cleanse the institutions that they're at. There's another quote from the Bible. It says, do not accept a bribe, because a bribe will twist the words of the wise and pervert the words of the most perspicacious. A campaign donation by a lobbyist is legalized bribery. And when it takes place by people who are destroying the planet, and the payback is that we have to allow them to destroy the planet, this is the worst type of bribery. We need people who are just going to say no and not accept the bribe. And then we also have in Jewish scripture, we have Ukohatim L'Dor Va-Dor L'chol Yoshveha. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, check out the Liberty Bell sometime and see where it says, proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. The teachings, the values of the United States are Jewish values. And we need Jewish people to get elected to remind the legislature that they owe so much to Jewish values, and therefore people fighting for civil rights for Blacks or anyone else should not leave out the Jewish people. We must fight for Jewish rights too. And we need people who are going to be in Congress who will stand up for Jewish rights and to remind them that the champions of civil rights with John Lewis and others were Jews as well as Christians. That's all I wanted to say. I thank Guido for being here. I'm going to ask Guido to leave, because when you're running for Congress, you got a lot of people to talk to and a lot of things to do. I appreciate your spending moments of silence with us. And I thank you, and I hope we'll see you soon. We have other candidates too.
Thank you so much. Rabbi, do you mind if I put my cell phone in the chat in case anybody wants to reach out?
Whatever you want to do, it's all yours. Whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna reach out. We're gonna have you back. Don't worry. And we're gonna have more discussions. I want to reach out to Tina Polsky and Said Hussain. So Said and Tina. Tina, are you available? I do see you now. So
Yeah.
let's have Tina share a few words. Tina, the floor is yours. We had the moment of silence for George Floyd. Anything you want to share about civil rights and the mistreatment of Blacks or anything else, or a little about yourself? Go right ahead.
Sure, happy to. Thank you for having me. I love what you just said about Jewish values in the legislature. There are some of us, it's a kind of a small caucus, and we do act together on certain sort of very Jewishy issues, if you will, but it is sort of that day-to-day value of taking care of one another that I think is so important. So I am a state rep for District 81. I think Barry had this area at some point in his career, sort of the western parts of South Palm Beach County, including the Glades area. And I'm running for state senate, which includes pretty much all of my House district and additional areas, all of Boca Raton, Northwest Broward, all of Wellington, and continue with West Delray, West Boynton, West Lake Worth, and still in the Glades. But speaking of, kind of taking care of those who need it, the underserved, representing the Glades and Boca Raton is like a complete dichotomy. And while it is probably, the Glades is maybe only 25% of the population of the House district and even a smaller part of the Senate district, it has been a real focus of mine. It is such an underserved population. Before the pandemic, when we were experiencing like 3% unemployment, they were experiencing like 27% unemployment. I don't know how many of you have visited that area, but it's hard to believe it's Palm Beach County, and the Palm Beach County that we're used to. And so it's really been an honor to represent them. To my sole focus in appropriations is for them, is to get money to the cities to do projects because they have such a low tax base. So I've been able to accomplish some of that. But just going there today, I went there to bring COVID testing to an area that is underserved, where they're not as aware of what's going on, and just getting people to be involved in the community. And there's a lot of great charity work going on out there, and I'm really happy to be a part of it and to continue it. But I just brought that up because I was there today. I was very happy to vote for criminal justice reform, prison reform that we had over the last 2 years. I myself proposed a bill to take away driver's license revocations over nonviolent crimes. Sometimes people are losing their driver's license over a bad check. And just imagine, that could be a mistake sometimes, not intentional. And then they don't have their driver's license and they can't drive to work, or they're driving without a license. And it's just a spiral of someone getting into trouble because they don't have a means to get to their job. So part of that was taken up in the criminal justice reform bill 2 years ago, so I was happy about that. But if I am lucky enough to get to the state senate, I will have more opportunities and unlimited bill slots to continue to work on criminal justice reform and civil rights. I'm a strong proponent of women's rights, LGBTQ rights. I'm a little late to this because I was just on with the Rusty Gordon Palm Beach LGBTQ caucus, and they will vote to endorse later, and I've been endorsed by some of our other LGBTQ advocacy groups, and it's really an honor to be able to represent their interests in Tallahassee and to fight for equality, which I have done on the floor and will continue to do. So thank you all for your time. I think this was a lovely service idea, and to me it's very important to always fight for my Jewish values, equality, giving back, and that is why I am a public servant, and I'm looking to continue that in role in state senate. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope I have your support in state district, Senate District 29. Thank you so much.
Tina,
yes.
Would you be willing to debate your opponent if we organized it, our
Yes.
congregation? Is
Absolutely.
he will he debate you? Has he agreed to debate in the past or no?
We have a ABC debate coming up
Yeah.
that will be televised. We filmed that Thursday, and then it'll be televised a few days later. We've had quite a few candidate forums that were not supposed to be debates, but they unfortunately turned into debates a little bit. I will debate him anytime, anywhere. I can't
Great.
speak for him.
We'll set it up. And by the way, I think gun control, that's a Jewish issue. Healthcare, it's a Jewish issue. Immigration rights, Jewish issue. Crime and justice, it's all Jewish issues. And I'm glad that you're reminding your colleagues about that. And we really support what you're doing. And I think it's great that you showed up here. And we believe that money should not determine who gets elected. Ideas should. And so we want to give you the platform to share ideas with other people. We thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
We're inviting you back. Thank you so much. Go out and campaign, and good luck to you. We need you.
Thank you.
All
I
right,
got
now
phone
we
calls
have,
to make. Thank you,
thanks.
everyone. Stay safe. Be careful out there.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Now we have another great candidate. Really thrilled that he's here also.
Yep,
His
I
name
just
is
unmuted
Said.
him. Yep.
Said Hussain is a
Yes.
great candidate. We've had him here before, and I always like listening to him, and I've chatted with him on the phone. So Said, go ahead, take it away. What would you like to share with us?
So my name is Said Hussain, and I'm a 22-year-old environmental engineering student running for the Florida House District 91, which is part of Boca Raton, Delray Beach, and Boynton Beach. You know, although my main campaign platforms is, you know, HOA transparency, advocating for the Jewish community here, you know, looking at all of the different, you know, being an advocate for people, you know, I think that's something that I feel in state politics, most politicians especially kind of lack that community connection. You know, coming from humble beginnings, you know, I'm an immigrant, very proud of that. One and a half, my family immigrated from Guyana in South America to live the American dream in South Florida. So I'm a Floridian 100%. Most, you know, elected officials have only been here only a few years. I grew up in the school system here. You know, I went to very poor schools in Broward County. You know, I was unseen by politicians, superintendents, school board members because I went to, by people that, you know, they saw the school that I went to and they just didn't want to go. I saw how I am the product of existing policy, and I know that I could bring change to my community by being a state representative because I actually know my community. Although the area that I'm running in is a primarily senior district, you know, primarily Jewish district, average age of 70. As a young man myself, I know I have the energy and drive to actually bring change. Some of the changes I want to make is economic zones in Boynton. Boynton Beach, I feel, is the most neglected part of my district. I can't remember the last time any elected officials really go out there, but I do. I do food drives there, and I see the way people are over there feel neglected, just like I did when I was younger. I understand that all we have to do is just show face. Instead of putting all of our attention to Boca, where all the money is, I want to show face to everybody equally. You know, coming from the background that I am, being Indian myself, I know that I will be a great representative for the district. And I hope that everybody can support a young man like me, regardless of how much money I might have or how much my parents have. That's out of the question. I come from humble beginnings, and I know that through that experience, I can be a great representative for everybody here.
Well, thank you, Said. Living in Boca Raton, I can tell you that not everybody in Boca Raton is wealthy. Some of us are,
Yes.
some of us are rather modest means. But I'm glad to have somebody who's willing to represent all the district. I just want to share with everybody here that we have become very partisan, as everybody knows, and we don't talk to each other enough. So to have someone who's running as a Republican named Said Hussain coming on and talking with us is a really good thing. And what I'm hoping is that he will lift up the consciousness of people so they don't judge based on his political party, his name, where he comes from, and look at the issues. We have to look at everybody as individuals and make an honest choice and not just reflexively decide. And I want to ask you one other thing, Said.
Yes.
With your background, because you are Republican, do you agree with the Republican president who wants to turn the dreamers' dreams into nightmares and send them home if they came here, like when they were 1 year old or something like that? Do you agree with that policy? Or are you willing to stand up and disagree with the party sometimes?
You know, there's a lot of issues with the party that, you know, I mean, both sides of the aisle, they're so out of touch with young people, it's unimaginable. I mean, young conservatives are more environmentally friendly than our previous generation by a long shot. We want clean environment, clean energy. And in regards to, you know, topics like that, like with the dreamers, I have friends that are dreamers. We all have friends that are dreamers. We do not want to see our friends leave a country that they've only known. It's ridiculous that, you know, politics get into play. The issue is that most of these folks up in Tallahassee or in Washington have not had friends like mine from diverse backgrounds that come from immigrant countries like me to understand. Look, I came to America when I was 1.5. If my parents decided to come 1.5 years earlier, I would have been a dreamer myself. I understand that sometimes, you know, we do have a broken immigration system. People are able to exploit that, and I would love to, you know, make it a little bit easier to have people like me come and live the American dream. But I'm willing to fully stand against my party or the president, especially because being a Republican is small government, you know, equal opportunity for all people, and having people like me, you know, open a small business. I just went to an Indian restaurant last night, and I spoke with the owner, and I did a video for him, you know, supporting small businesses, people of color. This is what we stand for, not the political divide that we have created. So young people are definitely going to bring change. However, the change has to be smart. You know, it has to be good, moderate candidates like me. I'm barely, I would say, a Republican in current nature. I'm a future Republican, and that's going to be something different that most people haven't seen yet. So that's something I definitely support. I support the Dreamers, absolutely.
Side, I'm going to give you some free advice, gratuitous advice that you haven't asked for. So I think it's great that you're a free thinker. As soon as, right off the bat, make sure you let people know that you don't follow the party, especially when it comes to climate change and the environment, because you are a strong environmentalist, and you will bring change. You will bring youthful idealism and change to the environment, and people need to hear that right from the get-go. All right, so don't even speak for 2 minutes without letting people know you don't follow that pattern, and you're willing to stand up and speak. I'm thrilled to have you as a candidate. And I'm thrilled that you decided to join us at L'Dor Va-Dor tonight. I'll tell you the same thing. Go out and campaign, and we'll be seeing you soon. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rabbi Silver. It's an honor to meet you, and then your son's also as great as you. So I'll keep it up as much as you guys want.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day. Now, anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share some thoughts on the line? Who wants to share some thoughts about what we've been talking about and and George Floyd?
Absolutely. We need to see if we can make a difference here. So who would like, I think, Wendy, your hand is raised. Go ahead, Wendy, unmute yourself.
I knew that it would feel like a long time. And
Your volume, you need more volume.
It's as high, hold on.
Anybody else want to speak? Harris, go ahead. Oh, okay, she's back. Okay, go ahead, Wendy.
Shutting off one of the fans. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I knew it would feel like a long time, and I didn't look at the clock when Sharon started, but after it already felt like a long time, and I figured it was a minute and a half, I looked, and already, I'm sure less than a minute, I was getting emotional because I just could not imagine what it would have felt like just for that minute, having somebody on my neck. And then as the time went on and thinking about, you know, that he said it 28 times, it just you know, the whole thing. Like I said, I knew it would feel like a really long time. It was a really long time. But it's, I know that ever since the pandemic has gone on, I think in some ways, depending on what the issue is other than masks, people have been nicer to people. But I find when I'm on the phone with repair people, and they're from all over the world, I thank them for everything. I ask them where they are. I bless them.
Wendy, we lost your audio.
Those are some great sentiments. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendy. I think Harris had his hand up.
Oh, no, but I want to ask the rabbi a question.
Go right ahead.
What's Biden's views on Israel? We know what Trump's views are. is Biden pro-Israel, even with some
Biden's-
Democrats that are totally against Israel?
Biden is definitely pro-Israel, and he's also somebody who's going to make a good impression on people. So he's not going to embarrass people by being pro-Israel and saying crazy things and doing crazy things and being an embarrassment. He's going to be supportive of Israel, and he'll do it in an intelligent way. He's not, he doesn't follow lockstep all the policies of Israel as much as some others. He's not like Trump. Trump agreed to transfer the embassy, agreed to recognize the rights of Jews in the Golan. He cut off aid to the Palestinians because they're committing murder. So Trump did take a very, very strong stand for Israel in many ways. On the other hand, Trump he turned his back on the allies, the Kurds of Israel, and allowed the strategic ally of Israel to be slaughtered, which is unforgivable and far worse than any benefit that could have come. When he transferred the embassy, he had Christians there speaking who believe that Jews are going to hell and have said that publicly. So he also is a big supporter of Turkey, which is anti-Israel. And he loves Saudi Arabia because they make him rich and they sponsor terrorism all over the place. So it's a mixed bag. Is he pro-Israel? Absolutely. He's very pro-Jewish, he's very pro-Israel. And he'll do good by Israel, but he will not go along with everything Israel's doing, but nobody else has in the past. And he's going to be, I believe, a good friend of Israel. And let me put it this way. He's already been a good friend of Israel for decades. So we know where he stands.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Who else?
Emily.
Emily, go ahead. I'll unmute you. Unmute yourself. Okay.
Before this Zoom meeting, I was on another Zoom meeting with some people from Toronto and people who are snowbirds down here. And we were talking about Biden's speech today, as well as Canada's policies. Now, for instance, the Toronto Blue Jays cannot play baseball with American teams in Toronto because they won't let the Americans in because we carry the virus. They said no restaurants are open in Toronto for inside dining because it's dumb. And here we are in supposedly the smartest, biggest country in the world, unable to modify our behavior for the good of society. Biden spoke today, and he spoke very well about the things that are needed in society, like providing for daycare, providing for elder care. Speaking from experience, for when he was a single parent raising 2 boys after his wife was killed, it was very interesting to me to hear what people in other places are thinking about our country. And mostly they're laughing at us. We've got to make a change.
Well, even the Bahamas won't let us in. That's pretty
I know
wild.
it. I know it.
When the Bahamas says we're not allowed to visit, we're in trouble. Anyway, anybody want to share some thoughts about the topic that we started out with, the civil rights, the police? I know, Ron, I'm sure you have something to say about all this. And I'm sure Irene, I'm sure our social action chair, Margie, has something to say. And so just anybody want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, Barry, I definitely endorse what Emily was saying about the restrictions that have been put in place in Canada. I speak to people in Canada every day, and they won't let anybody through the border, but I understand that you're able to fly in. But once you're in, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then you can leave, or then you can go about your business, and then when you're done, you could leave. But they're not anxious to, and they're smart. I believe they're smart.
Yeah.
They are looking to protect their citizens, unlike our government, who doesn't really seem to care very much about our citizens.
Yeah. Ron is our resident alien. He comes from another country far away, and he's able to shed light on the American experience as seen through the eyes of a foreigner. And he speaks a great English for a foreigner too. So he speaks a good French too, and a great Hebrew also. So I thank you, Ron, for your thoughts. I see. Let's see. We got Nicole and Irene, Stacy. Who wants to share some thoughts? Sheila,
Say something.
Margie, our social action.
Margie. Hi, Margie.
Hello, everyone. Almost Shabbat Shalom, but not really. Midweek. You know, there's so much to say, but you know, in terms of what's going on right now in Portland with this police and their camouflage, and it's just amazing, the fear, you know, this non-relenting, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. It's just awful. But I think a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, you know, I think they're there, they got it. I think they understand now more and more that, you know, a lot of this is just a bunch of, you know, hooey, which is what it is. You know, George Floyd, forget about it. You know, what can we say? What can we say about how cruel that we can be to each other? And like the old saying goes, you know, you may not have done it, but you're also guilty. And to think of those other officers, you know, of how was that fear of getting fired or being yelled at by their boss, or, you know, how did that overcome them? It's just really, really, you know, incredible and sad. That's all you can, you know, say about the whole thing. The other thing I've been experiencing is, you know, I live next to more like not right-wing Republicans, but they love Trump, blah, blah, blah. Their family, you know, there was a death in the family. So all these people came from New Jersey, not a one of them with a mask. I'm like, so over the time that they were with me, they became a little bit more respectful, but they just live in a world that they just don't believe. They do not believe that this is, they don't say it's not real. They just don't think that it's that serious at all.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
no matter how many people die, no matter how many people get sick, no, they just la la land. And it's very, very frightening to see how, you know, people can be led astray so easily and quickly, and really for no logical reason. So all we have to do is show love, like John Lewis said. I don't know if people had said this, but he said one of the people who had beaten him up once in one of his, you know, one of the times that he was, you know, arrested, and that man, I think it was from Alabama, and he got in touch with John Lewis, and he said, will you forgive me? Will you forgive me? And John Lewis said, yes. We have to go above ourselves. So no matter how bad your oppressor is, if they come out and they ask for forgiveness, forgive. And I don't know if I can ever forget Donald Trump, but that will be one of my goals, I guess, as a person. So that's it.
And I think also we should be willing to make the first move when it comes to people from other parties and other beliefs.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't wait around for them to do it. We should reach out to them and try to build bridges and not see them as evil people, and try to just share our beliefs. Who else wants to share some thoughts?
There's that historian, Michael Beschwas, and he said, what did he say? He said, there's nothing you can do about dumb. You can't arrest dumb. So that, you know, it's hard to believe that people who could have such cruel instincts could just be dumb. It's hard to believe that there's something in them that don't make them maybe not a good person. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not really so much dumb, because there's very smart people who support some very bad policies and some irrational policies. It's the willingness to suspend your rational mind. Yeah. And allow your mind to be filled with irrational thoughts. And people who are very logical and very smart and very intelligent can take a corner of their mind that a certain belief system and just allow that to be hijacked. So we have to be careful about ideology. And that's why at L'Dor Va-Dor we like to try to promote reason and logic and overcome that, because it's very scary ideology. Okay, who else wants to share some thoughts?
Did you have your hand, Nicole? Did you have your hand raised? No? Okay. Irene, do you want to share anything? I got to unmute.
Meeting.
Okay, you're unmuted now, Irene.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes,
Yes.
you are. You're on.
I think it's a wonderful that you had these candidates, and it's an opportunity that we wouldn't have otherwise. I have my ballot here, and I would not have had an opportunity to see this young man who's running against Lois Frankel, but he certainly sounded very interesting to me, and I'm glad I had an opportunity to see him, hear him.
And Irene and others, that's what I think it's important. You know, Rabbi Barry is reaching out to these candidates, even if they're only on for 5 minutes, to us to get to see them, know who they are, what they're about, and tell us, you know, have an opportunity to be able to ask questions. I know in the chat, if you know how to get onto the chat, Guido Weiss put his phone number there. So if anyone wants to call and ask him a question, he put it there. I can read it off if you don't have that. It is 561-320-2441, and that's for Guido Weiss, W-E-I-S-S. And Guido was on another program that we had, and hopefully we'll maybe have him back again to talk about, maybe we'll invite Lois Frankel again, because she didn't show up the first time. But it's important for us to know what kind of decisions they're going to make for us in Congress, whether it be state level or nationwide. It's very important. So
And
thank you, Irene.
I just want people to know also, yeah, thanks for your comments, Irene. I just want people to know also, a lot of the candidates were invited. So the opponents of the people who showed up, they were invited. We can learn something important by who shows up and who wants to talk to us and who's going to rely on campaign ads or brochures or slick communications. So they're going to be invited back again. Pay attention to who's showing up and who wants to talk to you and who's ignoring you. Because when I ran for office, I had very little money because I didn't take money from special interests. So I would be running and my opponent would have this big, huge sign on the street. And wherever I went, big, huge signs and fancy brochures and all this stuff. I never got a chance to compete with that. We need to offset that. We need to do something to level the playing field. And the way we do that is by having candidates come on and speak to us so we can hear them without them having to pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to be heard. The system we have is broken and corrupt. And we need to equalize it by giving candidates opportunities to be heard. And that's what we're going to do here. And we don't care what party they're from. We don't care what their ideology is. They're going to be heard so that we can make intelligent choices. I want to share just one other thing. I got a call from the Jewish Journal. They are interested in doing a story on L'Dor Va-Dor, our new approach to Judaism, cosmic Judaism, science-based Judaism, and they want to talk about the high holidays and what we're doing. This is a really great opportunity for us to get some really good publicity in the Jewish Journal in anticipation of our high holidays.